We all know that feeling. You walk into a room and a doll is just there. Its eyes seem to follow you and you feel that little chill run down your spine. Have you ever wondered why that is? Why do we tell stories about these innocent-looking toys coming to life? Was it always like this? Is there a reason why something made for comfort and play has become a horror staple? Time to figure it out. Dolls. For kids, they're toys, friends to dress up, talk to, and take care of. But for a lot of adults, they're straight up creepy. Those frozen smiles, the glassy eyes that never blink, it's enough to make anyone uncomfortable. So, why do so many of us feel uneasy around dolls? And why do scary stories about dolls, from possessed toys to haunted antiques, keep popping up again and again? The truth is, this fear isn't new. The idea of dolls being more than just playthings goes back thousands of years. In many cultures, dolls weren't toys at all. They were spiritual objects. People believed they could hold power, channel magic, or even contain the souls of the dead. Fast forward to today, and our haunted doll stories are really just the modern version of those old beliefs. We've traded rituals and myths for horror movies and urban legends, but the theme hasn't changed. We keep imagining dolls as vessels for something not human.
Walk to me, you little bastard! Come on! Tell me what you've done! Speak!
To really understand where haunted doll stories come from, you have to go way back in history. Back then, they weren't haunted in the scary sense. They were respected, even sacred. The idea that a doll could hold on to something beyond the physical eventually set the stage for the creepier legends that emerged much later. In ancient Egypt, about 4,500 years ago, people believed death wasn't the end, it was just the beginning of another journey. And that journey required work. Fields needed tending, food needed to be prepared, and the spirit of the dead wasn't supposed to do all of that labor alone. That's where the dolls came in. They created small figures called shabti dolls, carved from wood and stone. They were made to look like little workers, often holding tools like hoes or baskets. When someone was buried, dozens, sometimes even hundreds of these dolls could be placed inside the tomb. They were also called the answerers because they were believed to answer the call of the gods whenever work needed to be done. Farming, carrying, building, basically servants for eternity. And here's the important link. This is one of the earliest examples of humans seeing a lifeless object as something that could wake up and act on its own. It wasn't horror at that time, but you can see how the same idea that an inanimate figure moving with a will of its own would evolve into the creepy haunted doll stories. Another example comes from the Yoruba people of Nigeria, who place strong spiritual value on twin. Among the Yoruba, twins are seen as sacred, and their souls are believed to be permanently connected. When one twin dies, the family creates a carved wooden figure called an ere ibeji. This figure is made to serve as the physical body for the spirit of the deceased twin. The surviving twin, or the mother, will look after the doll as if it were the child. Neglecting the doll, however, could anger the spirit and bring harm. In Japan, there's an old belief that everyday objects can come to life after they've been around long enough. These spirits are called tsukumogami. Even something simple, like a tool or a doll, could eventually gain a personality of its own. Most of the time, they were playful tricksters pulling pranks, but if they felt ignored or abandoned, they could turn bitter and lash out. That same idea shows up in other traditions too, where dolls or figures were used in rituals to hold spiritual energy, sometimes for protection, sometimes for harm. The common thread here is simple. People everywhere have always imagined that objects can carry a soul. That's why dolls have never just been toys. They've been treated as vessels, stand-ins for the living, or even guides for the dead. And when you look at it that way, today's haunted doll stories are just the latest version of something humans have believed for thousands of years. During the Victorian era, dolls took on a darker meaning. For centuries, they had been tied to ritual and spirituality, but in the 1800s, society began to see them in an entirely new and unsettling way. This was an age obsessed with death. When Prince Albert died in 1861, Queen Victoria entered a period of mourning that lasted for decades. Her grief set the tone for an entire generation. Death became part of daily life, from fashion to the objects inside the home. Families who lost children often turned to something called mourning dolls. These were wax effigies of the deceased child, made to look as real as possible. Sometimes they were dressed in the child's actual clothing, and their hair would be used to finish the figure. At funerals, these dolls were laid out as if the child was still present. Afterwards, they weren't discarded. They were brought back into the home, placed in cribs, rocked, bathed, and cared for as though the child's spirit still lingered within them. What was meant to comfort grieving families ended up producing objects that blurred the line between memorial and imitation life, and they were disturbing to anyone outside that circle of grief. At the same time, the Industrial Revolution transformed how dolls were made. For the first time, they were being mass-produced from porcelain and wax, and unlike earlier simple carvings, these new dolls had delicate facial features, pale white skin, and glass eyes that seemed to watch you wherever you moved. This period introduced something psychologists today call the uncanny valley, the strange, uncomfortable reaction we feel when something looks almost human, but not quite right. These dolls had smooth porcelain skin and perfect painted smiles, but their expressions never changed. Their glass eyes never blinked. Their faces were just human enough to feel familiar, but lifeless enough to trigger a deep instinct that something was wrong. The psychological unease of the uncanny and the centuries-old traditions surrounding dolls created fertile ground for the rise of modern legends. In the 20th century, specific cases emerged that transformed dolls from unsettling playthings into iconic symbols of horror. First up is Robert the Doll. This story starts in 1904 in Key West, Florida, when a boy named Robert Eugene Otto was given a life-size doll made of straw. Some people say the doll was cursed. Supposedly, a maid, angry at the Otto family, gave it to him as a sort of revenge. Robert got really attached to the doll, even giving it his own name. Soon, people started saying the doll would move around on its own, and that weird sounds like giggling could be heard coming from it. After Robert passed away in 1974, the strange occurrences didn't stop. Now Robert the Doll is on display in a museum, and visitors say if you disrespect it, you'll get bad luck. Then there's Annabelle, which gained attention through paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. In 1970, a mother bought a Raggedy Ann doll for her daughter, Donna, a nursing student. Right away, Donna and her roommate Angie noticed the doll moving on its own. Things got even weirder when they found notes saying "Help us" written by the doll, and it even seemed to have blood on its hands. A psychic said the doll was haunted by a young girl's spirit, but the Warrens believed it was actually a demon pretending to be the girl's spirit in order to possess someone. After doing an exorcism, the Warrens took the doll and locked it in a case in their museum, where it stays today. The Warrens later claimed that the doll caused accidents and even contributed to a man's death after he taunted it. So when you look at a doll and get that creepy feeling, just remember that is not random. You're not just reacting to a horror movie. You're connecting with thousands of years of human history. A long, creepy journey from ancient rituals to a deep-seated fear of what it means for an inanimate object to have a soul.